Hello, this video contains flashing lights as well as a myriad of other things that are going to be shown on screen now. If you are sensitive to any of these subjects, please click off and watch another video. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you. With that said, enjoy!
From the early 2000s up until recently, I was a huge fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. I collected a bunch of Sonic merch and games, even the ones people made fun of. I had a small friend group online that shared my love for the Sonic series. One of those friends lived nearby. Out of respect for them, I will not give their name. My friend adored Sonic even more than I did. I remember they'd hand-make plushies and send them to me and our online friends. I still have the Amy Rose plush they made. It's very well made. So well made you might think it came from a store. There was so much care put into it. They were very talented, with a passion I shared. Maybe I didn't share it in the same way, but it's what initially connected us online. I owe that blue hedgehog for many of my friendships, some of which I still have now, despite what later happened. A few years ago, an incident happened involving my friend that changed everything. I'm writing about it now because I'm hoping it might bring me some closure and maybe even prevent what happened to them from happening to someone else. I won't give specific locations or dates, both for my own safety and out of respect for my friend's family. In my sophomore year of college, I got immersed in the realm of Sonic fan games. None of them were particularly good, and some were more funny than actually playable. A few were good, but not many. I got some enjoyment out of one that was a part of an ARG, but that was about it. Overall, I didn't particularly care for most of them. My friend was different. He could find the passion in every game and TV show he got his hands on. Even if what he was playing or watching wasn't very well put together, he would always try to see what the creator had intended without being distracted by how poorly it was executed. A good example of this is Sonic 06. In the gaming industry, it's universally agreed to be a laughingstock. It has poor controls, terrible gameplay, and its story is awful. The only saving grace for me would be Shadow's story and the game's main villain, Mephiles. I found Silver's story to be boring, and Sonic's story was embarrassingly bad. Suffice to say, most people agreed. Even with that terrible game, my friend preferred to see the creator's vision for the game while still acknowledging Sonic 06 was very poorly put together. They recognized Silver's arc as a good person trying to convince himself to do something terrible for what he believes is the greater good, and his change of heart after his awful fight and being confronted by Amy Rose. He agreed that Sonic's campaign wasn't nearly as good as the others. It almost felt like Sonic was an afterthought in his own game. My friend loved to download fan games. To them, fan games were an expression of love that's similar to songs, artwork, and magazine articles. They downloaded the games onto a blue flash drive and they'd mail it to me once the drive was full. That took several months. We chatted online regularly. We didn't live too near each other, but we still crossed paths every once in a while. Whenever that happened, we got to have a nice in-person chat. They never did send me that flash drive. I remember how I felt when their mother gave me the awful news. My heart dropped and my skin went cold. My mind refused to believe what I was hearing, but at the same time, I knew it was true. A few weeks before, I tried to reach out to my friend. I found a copy of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games from the Nintendo DS at a yard sale. They'd been searching for it for a while, but Nintendo discontinued the DS console over 25 years ago. So the games were rare, and priced accordingly. My friend's birthday was coming up, and I knew the game would be a great birthday present. Later that year, I planned to track down an old 3DS for it. I called and messaged them to be on the lookout for my gift in the mail, but they never picked up or responded. That was very unusual, so after a couple weeks went by like that, I decided to stop by their house. That was where their mom told me my friend had died from a seizure. That didn't make sense to me. They had epilepsy all their life, but had many seizures many times before. What was different this time? She said it was like nothing she had ever seen before. It was brutal, more violent than ever before, and lasted over 10 minutes. It didn't end until his heart stopped. From what she said, that was right around when I stopped hearing from him. I remember how knowing the ugly details of what happened made me feel. One of my best friends died, and I had no clue. I could tell my being there made my friend's mom feel uncomfortable. Of course, it was painful dredging up what happened, but it felt like there was more to it. I've never been good at reading people, though. What saved me was the brother who interrupted us to give me the blue flash drive.
They said they were planning to give this to you a while back. I don't know what's on it, but you can have it if you want it.
The next thing I knew, I was driving back to my dorm with the blue flash drive in my hand. It was the last thing my friend would ever give me, and I didn't know how to feel about it. I didn't know if I was ready to see what was on it, or if I ever would be. I just couldn't let it sit on my desk, ignoring it until I forgot about it. That felt disrespectful, and I knew I wouldn't forget about it. It would gnaw at me until I gave in and played it. I spent several days unfocused on my assignments and job, falling behind in my classes. One particularly frustrating and unproductive night, I'd finally decided to get it over with and plug the flash drive into my computer. It unloaded quickly, and suddenly I could see what was inside. There was a series of fan games, most of which didn't interest me. The few that I played were pretty good, but nothing earth-shattering. Apart from those, nothing really piqued my interest. I felt guilty about this. My friend loved these games and put the drive together with great care. My inability to feel the same excitement they did seemed ungrateful and dismissive about my friend's last labor of love. I hated that. I skimmed the list of games one last time to see if anything caught my eye, hoping to find something interesting I'd missed. That was when I saw a game with an odd file name, SonicTheHedgehog.exe. I chalked the odd name up to the developer's typo. When I clicked on the game to open it, however, an error message said the file didn't exist. I knew that couldn't be true. Every other game was accessible, and my friend wouldn't download something that didn't open. I thought about it for a moment. It occurred to me that the typo in the file name might be causing the problem, so I fixed the file name to read SonicTheHedgehog.exe. That did the trick, and the game opened. I was greeted by the original 1991 Sonic the Hedgehog title screen. The cocky blue hedgehog popping up inside this gold circle took me back to my childhood, when I first discovered Sonic. I looked more closely at the title screen and saw that Sonic looked different. His colors were slightly more saturated, his eyes seemed a little bigger and a tiny bit bloodshot, and his brows were more pronounced than what I remembered. Where the copyright text should have been was a language I didn't understand. Maybe that should have alerted me that something wasn't right, but I told myself I was making a big deal out of nothing. Childhood memories are often unreliable, and there could be a simple explanation. Maybe the text was from residual code or just a foreign language I'd never seen before. I was still emotionally reeling from everything that happened over the last few days, and against my better judgment, I ignored the warning signs and continued on. I pressed enter and was thrown into the first level. Green Hill. There was virtually nothing different about it. Apart from the colors being more saturated than I would like, it was nearly identical to the official version of the game. I played as I normally would. I wasn't very good at platformers, and I was even worse at this because the controls were very slippery. I was usually pretty good at avoiding damage from Sonic's enemies, but in this game it was nearly impossible. I also had more difficulty than usual with the terrain. The level design was different, with a massive amount of spikes littered throughout. It wasn't ridiculous, but it was a lot harder than normal. At least there weren't a fair number of rings to help you make it through. Right before the end of the level, I was damaged by an enemy. I can't remember if it was a Motobug, Buzz Bomber, or even a Neutron. It doesn't really matter, I was damaged anyways. Instead of losing rings when damaged like the original game, black squares came out of Sonic when he got hit. That was definitely strange, but I figured it was most likely a harmless bug caused by a coding error. When I passed the sign at the end of the level, the words "Past" slid onto the screen instead of "Sonic has passed Act 1. Once again, weird, but nothing crazy. Next came Marble Zone, Act 1. It should have gone to Green Hills Act 2 and 3, but instead it skipped both. I thought it was weird, but assumed it was an amateur game developer's mistake. I ran through Marble Zone. The music sounded a little off, but the whole game was off, so I assumed it was a programming error with the music. The graphics in Marble Zone seemed more saturated than Green Hill too. Now looking at the text at the upper and lower corners of the screen, I could see the words and numbers overlapping each other. Sonic's name was just his initials, STH. His icon seemed to have more detail than it should, almost like it was hand-drawn only to be pixelated and shoddily implemented into the game. His eyes were red around the edges with swollen eyelids like he had a disease. He was smiling, but not his cocky smirk like in all his promotional artwork. He looked human. Too human for my taste and way too human for how the hedgehog normally looked. Against my better judgment, I kept going. The level design of Marble Zone appeared hastily put together with entire sections either missing or that wouldn't load. Some platforms looked like they weren't there at all, or were only visible due to the items on them. The game was turning out to be complete garbage. I'm not too sure where in the level this happened, but at some point, the screen suddenly flashed white, black, and red. Then I heard a distorted scream so utterly disturbing that I threw off my headphones and looked away in shock. After a few seconds, the screen went black, and the game shut down entirely. At that moment, I knew this game killed my friend. I can't explain how or why, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. This was no ordinary game. It might have been garbage, but there was something unspeakably evil about it. And that garbage killed my friend. I needed to find out who did this and why. I had to. The last thing I wanted was to play that game anymore. And I should have set the damn thing on fire and destroyed it so no one else would ever fall victim to it again. Instead, I reopened the game. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to get away, but my need to know the whole truth was too strong. Once the title screen finished, the next zone appeared. There was no name, no title card, no nothing. Just a slanted red circle and nothing else. The stage was just a black void. Sonic's colors were way oversaturated and the shading was extremely harsh. As I went through the level, it felt strangely normal. It felt like forever before anything truly odd happened. The imagery in the platform background suddenly got grainy and began to glow blood red. A droning noise started up, growing progressively louder the further I went. The red glowing changed as well. As I advanced in the level, the glowing red static grew almost violently erratic and visceral. It started strobing red, white, and black, faster and faster. It started a little earlier in the level than the first time, which meant it went on for much longer than before I reached the end of the stage. All the way in the background, nearly obscured by the static and flashing lights, I saw what looked like a pair of eyes. Not cartoon eyes, but human eyes. I could only see quick glimpses between the static and the strobing lights, but somehow I knew they were watching me. Cold and emotionless, I could feel them, almost physically, in the deepest recesses of my soul, taking my measuring and cataloging my weakness. I felt like a small animal trapped in the sharp claws of a much larger and stronger predator. By this point, the droning sound was deafening. Suddenly, it all stopped. I quickly passed the goal post and completed the level. The next zone didn't have a name or any colored circle, it just looked like another green hill. I ran forward, but the level was empty. No floating platforms, no enemies, just flat ground and Sonic. I ran until I reached the cliff. I tried to run off it to see what would happen, but an invisible wall stopped me. What was going on? Did I miss a turn off into an alternate route? I turned around to head back, but was immediately stopped by a loud, high-pitched, piercing screech that sounded like a scream and more flashing lights. When the lights finally stopped, a room appeared. It looked like the continue screen from Sonic the Fighters. The music from the continue screen of Sonic 2 was playing, but the notes were off-key and all over the place, as if the musician had a seizure while recording it. In the center of the screen was a creepy version of Sonic, with red-rimmed crazy eyes and what looked like a human mouth. I could hear blood-curdling screams. like someone was being tortured and murdered. Images of mangled faces flashed on the screen behind Sonic. My mind thankfully blocked the gory details from my memory. I wouldn't tell you them to you even if I could. I wouldn't want to put those thoughts into anyone else's head. The screen flashed again. Red, white, and black. Faster and faster, the screaming hadn't stopped and the droning was louder than ever. 2 bulging, bloodshot eyes appeared behind Sonic. The sprite of Sonic from the title screen appeared, only more detailed and mangled, and he was looking at me, clear as day. I tried to exit the game, but it wouldn't close. I tried to shut off the computer. Nothing. It looked like the icon from just a few stages ago, only in much more horrifying detail. That freakishly human smile, his face drenched in blood. His eyes looked like they were about to pop out of his head. A split second before it reached 0, I looked away from the screen and tore off my headphones. I heard an overwhelming barrage of screams, noises, and unintelligible garble from my headphones' leakage. Even with my face turned away, I could see the flashing lights and gruesome images I couldn't quite make out. When it finally stopped, I quickly unplugged the computer. Whatever this was, I wasn't going to play along with it in whatever sick joke this was. I quickly went to check the game files, thinking that I could maybe find who the game came from and have it reported to the police, or maybe to the place that the thing might have been uploaded to. Anyone. I didn't end up tracking down whoever made it, but instead, a row of MP3 files, amounting to 11. They were each named counting down to 10. When played, they all just emitted a buzzing, almost ear-piercing noise that I almost couldn't put up with. They each played a different noise, each more irritating than the last. I figured that those sounds had to mean something, and quickly went to forums online asking if anyone knew what to do with these noises, see if anyone could tell me what they meant. One user told me to try and use a spectrogram to plug the sounds in. Sure enough, it got me results. Weird results. The pictures the spectrogram produced were all of people. The photos were clear and the eyes were all blacked out. I didn't recognize any of them at first, but towards the end I recognized one. The file name was 0. The picture was of my friend. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. I thought that it was just someone who happened to look like my friend. I thought that maybe, just maybe, my eyes would trigger me. They weren't. Tears started pouring down my face, and I started crying uncontrollably, realizing the gravity of the situation. I had just found what had killed my friend, and it was the very thing he loved so much for his entire childhood. A few moments later, my roommate entered our dorm, wondering what the loud noise was, only to find me sobbing with a picture of my friend on my computer screen. They rushed over, asking me what happened and what was wrong. In between tears, I told them what happened. They didn't believe me at first and told me to stop making shit up. I then showed him the spectrogram images and the files on the computer. No response at first. We both sat in silence for a bit, while I tried to wipe my unending tears away and get myself together. After a bit of silence, he told me that we should call the police and let them handle this. I told him that there was no way in hell that the police would believe that a troll game about Sonic with bloody eyes and a creepy smile killed people whose photos were in said game. He said that we needed to anyways. Even if they didn't believe us, they'd probably still have to look into it. I thought for a bit, and ultimately decided he was right. We went to the nearby police station, and once it was our turn, we were called in to give them our story. We told them, and, of course, at first, they didn't believe us. They seemed angry that we were supposedly wasting their time with this nonsense. That sentiment changed when we showed them the evidence, though. After we were done presenting them with the proof, us and the officer all just sat there in silence. They eventually told us that they'd look into it and that they'd reach out to us as soon as they got anything on the case. We thanked them and headed back to our dorms. It's been over 15 years since we last heard anything from the station, and at this point I've given up hope. I only write this now to give myself some form of clarity and to hopefully let anyone else who's experienced something like this know that you're not alone. Please, don't give up hope like I have, and keep pushing forward until you get answers. Thank you, and take care.